أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين على أعدائهم الهارمين. I was talking about the differences between hamd and madh. And it's important to understand before we go directly to the ayat Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So it's important to understand the difference between Alhamd and Al-Madh. And Ash-Shukr. This is an important discussion, so you have a clear idea about what exactly is the meaning of Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So let's understand the difference first. So madh, the difference between hamd and madh. I already talked about the definition of hamd, which I don't think I have to repeat it. So hamd is done towards kamal, perfection. Anyone who has kamal and perfection plus has intellect. Aql. Whereas the word madh on the other hand is okay to use it towards the one who has no intellect, no aql. When somebody has no aql, how can a person acquire the perfection? That's understandable. So the opposites in Arabic language, hamd opposite is haju. Madh opposite in Arabic is qadh. I was reading in the report that Arabic language, despite the fact that English has so much inventions and scientific advancements nowadays, still the total number of words of Arabic language are much more than the total number of the words in the English language. The Arabic is a very vast language, no comparison to any language in the world, absolutely no comparison. So now let's go to the next point. So, so when this is the case, then it's understandable that we can use the word madh in Arabic, which in English we usually use the word praise, as synonyms. Praise can be done towards somebody who is maybe insane. Maybe a person is totally without the aql and without intellect, insane. You know, that is possible. Or those who are non-intellectuals, they are all, those who don't have intellects, they are all maybe subject to mud type of praise. So, when this is understandable, now we can relate to the fact that, for example, some examples. So, in Arabic we say, madahtul lu'lu'a. I praised the pearl. A pearl has no intellect. That's how Allah created it, right? It looks nice, glittering, beautiful, appealing. So we praise a pearl. More importantly, a natural pearl, which is more expensive than the artificial ones. So you can use the word madahtul lu'lu'a. I praised the pearl. But you can never say hamadtul lu'lu'a. You can never say that I praise the pearl by using the word hamd in Arabic. A pearl doesn't have intellect. It doesn't make any sense to use the word hamd for a pearl. So this gives us the idea towards the direction we are going, towards Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So, and also hamd is done towards the things which are in your hamd is done towards things which are in your reach. So you use your free will to do that. Things which are in your reach to acquire. And that's we use our free will, we benefit from the free will given by Allah in the positive way to acquire those things which are in our reach. Right? So, whereas the word madh in Arabic, nothing to do with the free will, it's something which is totally beyond our reach to acquire, totally beyond our reach. It doesn't fall in the category, in the limits and fourfolds of our free will, but we still use the word madh for that. Example, madahtul I praise the person on his tall height. Him being tall is in his reach to acquire. Is something his free will applies to that. That's how Allah creates a person tall or short. Totally beyond the reach of a human to decide what would be my height. It's Allah's decision, right? It's not my reach to acquire or not to acquire. My free will doesn't apply on that. So here we use the word madh. Whereas when it comes to the word hamd, we say only hamd is used. Hamd is used only in the case where the free will of a person applies. So he had something in his reach and he acquired those things with his free will. So he uses the benefit of the freedom that Allah gives to do something, and that's where the hamd comes in. So we say hamadtu rajul, hamadtu shakhs ala sifatihi or nu'utihi. For example, I praise the person on his attributes. The attributes of the soul is something that is in our reach to acquire or not to acquire. So here is the role of our free will, which we utilize the free will in a way to acquire certain attributes. Here is the word hamd coming in. So whereas madh is about things, length of your body, or it's not in your control, for example.
The madh is towards the one who has no intellect. He's like, so any person reflecting attribute of Allah, like for instance Ahlul Bayt and others, so you do madh, that's alhamd.
Well, I'm coming to that point, and this is what I'm about to mention right now.
Okay.
So, hamd is specific to those of the things which are in your reach to acquire. So you use your freedom given by Allah and free will to acquire certain things, and that's where the hamd comes in. Whereas madh is possible to be done on things which are beyond your control. For example, your length of your body, your physique is not in your control, and also on things which are in your reach. So both are included. So we can say madahtul shakhs ala sifatihi is also possible. I praise the person on his attributes. So here is something you can, the word madh can be used over the attributes as well, and hamd is obviously the right way is to say hamd is specific to these instances, but the word madh is also possible. So now we are getting the glimpse of the difference. Now this is still not done, so let me finish first, then I'll come to the final description, inshallah. So another example of hamd will be infaq. Infaq means spending in the way of Allah. There's another example of hamd. Hamad al-rajul ala infaqihi. For example, I praise that person on his, giving, and on his spending, the way he gave for the sake of Allah, all those various spendings for the sake of Allah. This is infaq, which is not just for money. Infaq is not restricted to monetary things in Islam. Everything has an infaq. So I praise the person on his giving, infaq. So this is something which is within the reach of the person able to acquire. Likewise, you would say, Hamad rajul ala ilmihi. I praise the person on his knowledge. Ilm. Knowledge. Knowledge is something which is in your reach to acquire. And so you use your free will to acquire certain things. So these are some of the examples where is the proper way of using the word hamd. So if you want to say, so hamd and mud can be displayed by this diagram. So every hamd is a mud as well, but every mud cannot be a hamd, right? This circle is hamd, this circle is mud. So hamd are specific phrases in specific instances, in situations. But mud is a very wider concept that includes every form of hamd is included in mud, but every form of hamd is not necessarily a mud. So this is a little description between mud and hamd. And now let's go to the third one, which is a shukr, which is also a very synonymously used word. So in shukr and hamd. So now the difference comes here. In hamd, let me erase this so it doesn't become a mess, then I will continue. Ilm al-Mantiq, we call it, just to mention a terminology, maybe people will be watching on internet as well. In Ilm al-Mantiq, this kind of relation, whenever there be established relation between two concepts, two things, relations and between things are mentioned in the science of logic. So this relation is called umumun wa khususun min wajh. That's the technical term of this relationship. I'm just mentioning it for those who know Ilm al-Mantiq, they can relate to what I said. Umumun wa khususun min wajh. That's the relationship between mad and hamd in the terminology of Ilm al-Mantiq, logic.
And shukr is not included in there? There's no overlap?
No, I'm coming to hamd and shukr now.
That's not
No, I mean in the circle, there's no overlap with shukr?
There are certain things which may be overlapping and certain things may not be overlapping. So I will explain those things. Shall I erase it? let's go to the relationship between hum and shukr. وصول كمال المحمود وصول أصل كمال المحمود. Yeah, let me rewrite it. وصول This thing is compulsory in the hamd, in the concept of hamd, whereas this thing is not compulsory in the concept of shukr. What is the meaning of this? وصول أصل كمال المحمود إلى الغير. Mahmud is the person who is the praised one, the one whom you are praising. Kamal means the perfection. Asar means the impact. Mosul means reaching. Let me now write the translation. So, the impact of the perfection of the one who is praised must be reaching This is compulsory for us to use the word hum in Arabic. If this is not there, you cannot use the word hum in Arabic. The impact of the perfection, that attribute of perfection upon which you are praising someone, there is an attribute of perfection. Something which is perfect, right? So that attribute of perfection has an impact. And that impact must be reaching other than the person who is praised. So his perfection's impact should be reaching others. This is compulsory. Whereas in shukr, this is not required. But this is the first difference between hamd and shukr. Examples. So this is the difference that was like you're mentioning the aqwal statement. This is a difference which is mentioned by some people. That that's the first point that some scholars have mentioned, that this is the first difference. Now, this difference is not acceptable by majority of our scholars. Majority of our scholars of our faith, followers of Ahlul Bayt, they don't accept this difference because this difference clashes with the concept of hamd which is mentioned in the Holy Quran and the concept of hamd which is mentioned in the some of those authentic du'as of Ahlul Bayt, of the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So this is mentioned by some scholars, but that's disagreed upon by the scholars of our faith. I'm just mentioning you too, so you get the idea that this is there in the discussion. Our scholars disagree with this point because many a times we find that we praise Allah upon certain things of perfection, whereas those certain things has no impact reaching anyone else in our lives. And the example that our scholars bring to disprove this is the example of tajarrud of Allah. Allah being non-material. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is nur, light, which is metaphysical. It's not a physical thing. Right? So Allah being mutajarrid or mujarrad anil madda, is a non-material entity. This is a perfection of Allah. Being material is a sign of being, non-perfect, because matter is dependent, right? Whereas nur is not dependent. So, this is one of the, kamalat and attributes of perfection for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the impact of Allah being non-material is not reaching any of the others in the universe. Am I receiving any impact from Allah's perfection of being non-material entity? No. I'm not receiving any impact from this attribute of perfection of Allah. So, so you find an example for this is mentioned. Obviously, we have so many examples. I've just taken a few of those here. So, in As-Sahifa As-Sajjadiyya of Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam, Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam, this is the dua number 1. Where Imam As-Sajjad alayhi salam says about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the dua number 1 of Sahifa. He says, الَّذِي قَصَرَتْ عَنْ رُؤْيَتِهِ أبصار الناظرين. Allah is the one that the eyes of the watchers, those who are watching, are unable to see Him. The reason why we are unable to see Allah is because Allah is non-material, right? Our eyes, physical eyes, can only see things of the world of matter to a certain limits. That to a certain limit. We cannot see everything in the world of matter. There are billions and billions of stars available in the cosmos which we don't even know about, and they're so far away we don't even see their light. So we don't see everything of the world of matter either. But because our vision has certain limits. But bottom line, we can only see the world of matter. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the eyes of those who are watching are unable to perform the ru'yat, to see Him. That's because Allah is nur and divine light and non-material. But we are not receiving any benefit for that in our lives. So, in the beginning of this dua, so how does it relate to the concept of hamd? Because in the beginning of the dua, Imam Sajjad says, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah alladhi. All the praise, using the word hamd instead of using the word shukr. Alhamdulillah, all the praise belongs to Allah. So, and then he mentions also another attribute, al-awwal bila awwal. Al-awwal bila awwalin qablahu. Qablahu kana qablahu. So he's the one who is the first without any first ahead of him. Wal-akhir bila akhirin yakunu ba'dahu, and he's the last one without any last being after him. And so being the first, likewise wal akhir, and being the last bila akhirin, without any last, after him. So being the first and being the last and being non-material, all these are attributes of perfection of Allah. Being the first is an attribute of perfection. Being the last, everyone would die and nothing would remain except Allah. He's the last, right? So being the first is an attribute of perfection. Being the last is an attribute of perfection. Being non-material and non-visible is an attribute of perfection for Allah. And none of those things, the impact of none of those things reach anyone other than Allah. And Imam Sajjad al-Islam is praising Allah on all those. Alhamdulillah. That's how he starts the dua. So this is where the hamd comes in, on things whose impact of those attributes of perfection do not. They say, some scholars had said it must be reaching others, where our scholars of the Shia faith disagree with this distinction and say this is incorrect to accept that. So we don't accept it because we have so many examples where impact of Allah's attributes of perfection simply do not reach anybody, any existence. So
This is for hamd or for shukr?
this is for hamd. So for hamd it's necessary in the eyes of these scholars that the impact of perfection must reach others. But in the eyes of scholars of the faith of Ahlul Bayt, no. The impact may not reach anyone other than Allah, but still the word hamd can be used. The second difference between hamd, the second difference mentioned again by some people, some of the scholars brought the second difference like this, that the word hamd is used only in the case of haqq, righteousness. Truth. You don't use the word hamd and praise for anything which is false, for falsehood, batil, untrue. This difference is also not accepted by the scholars of our faith, followers of Ahlul Bayt. They don't accept this difference because the Quran proves that this difference is unacceptable. How does the Quran prove that? So Quran says, and this is mentioned in verse number, Surah Al-Imran, verse 88. Al-Imran, verse 88, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking about some, He says, وَيُحِبُّونَ أَن يُحْمَدُوا بِمَا لَمْ يَفْعَلُوا. And they love to be praised for what they did not do. If you love to be praised for something you never did, is that haqq? Are you rightful to expect a praise from others? No, you're not rightful about that. You are on falsehood. If you expect to be praised for something you never did in your life, why should you be praised? You don't deserve it. So this is batil. This kind of praise is batil, but there are people who expect that, right? And the word hamd is used in the Holy Quran for something which is batil. It's not haqq. So this is where our scholars prove that the word hamd, this thing which some scholars of some faith have said hamd has to be used for haqq only, is not acceptable either, because hamd is used even in the case of batil in the Holy Quran as well. And also Imam Ali alayhi salam's dua is the second evidence on that, and this is from Nahj al-Balagha, khutbah, sermon number 225. Sermon 225. So, sermon 225 of Nahj al-Balagha. And this is where Imam Ali alayhi salam has said in this sermon, وَأُبْتَلَى بِحَمْدِ مَنْ أَحْتَانِي. So, one of the meanings at the moment we get from this dua is that Imam Ali alayhi salam doesn't want to get the risk through someone so that he would be subjected to end up praising that person who is serving as a means. So he is so much inclined in the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he doesn't want to do hamd of anyone other than Allah. So he doesn't want to end up in a situation where he would have to praise someone who is giving things to him. He wants nobody should be in the middle between him and Allah. So praising someone who is giving is actually it's not the right thing, right? It's the right thing is to praise Allah. So this is another example, serves as another example of the mawrid where righteousness comes in, that the rule of righteousness dictates that only Allah should be praised. Okay, also in third example of this point is the hadith. And this hadith, let me first give you the reference of the hadith. This hadith is mentioned in Bihar al-Anwar. Bihar al-Anwar, this is 2 A's. Bihar al-Anwar, volume 70, page 294. Volume 70, page 294. This is where this hadith is mentioned. So, the hadith says, Ohsu al-Maddahin at-Tarab. Throw on the face of those people who are praising you, throw the soil upon them. In Islam, praising somebody on the face is condemned. We praise the people behind their back. Praising somebody on his face is a negative thing for his spiritual uplift. We may end up in self-righteousness, self-praise, and that bogs us down from spiritual uplift and advancement. We don't praise the people on the face, we praise the people behind their backs. Somebody who is praising you on your face, Imam Ali says, throw the soil on his face. So, praising somebody, this is where the word madh is being used by Imam Ali alayhi salam. So those people who are doing your praise on your face, he's not using the word hamd in that case. So this is where the word madh comes in, and one example of that where the word madh is used for a place which is batil, and madh and hamd is also used for the places where it is batil. So this difference that hamd is specific to haqq only is not acceptable, because we have examples proving that the word hamd is used for batil, And just like the word mud is used for batil.
So haq here means, it doesn't mean that they deserve the madh or the hamd. Haq means that they're being praised for being righteous.
You're talking about this?
No. So when you say that number two is haq,
Yes.
so now this opinion basically means that some scholars say you can only use, when you use hamd, it means that the person is righteous.
Correct.
It's not about saying that the person deserves to be praised.
Oh, that, if he deserves to praise, that's one of the mawarid places of righteousness when you are deserved. That's haq, right? So if somebody is deserving to be praised, that's haq. According to the concept of haq, he should be praised. Now, obviously, we don't praise people on their faces, but we can praise the person if he has the haq, if he deserves to be praised. But our scholars disagree with this second difference mentioned by some other scholars, because the word hamd is not specific to haq only when there is righteousness involved. The word hamd is frequently used in du'as, and also in Quran is available in the places where it was a batil situation, where the person does not deserve any praise, but the word hamd was still used in the batil situation. So hamd is not specific to haq situations only. The word of hamd can be used in batil situations as well. That's the whole point.
Other than this verse, is there any other example where the word hamd is used in the
From Quran, no.
Because this one is hypothetical, right? So it's
Hypothetical? No, when Quran uses something, even if it is mentioned as a proverb, it's hujjat. Every ayat of Quran is authentic and hujjat.
no, I mean Quran is saying that they want to be praised, but they don't deserve it. But their praise that they're asking for is in the perception that they deserve it.
Well, if
You know what I mean?
they don't deserve and they expect to be praised, it's batil, right? They're not rightful in expecting that. So when it's batil, they don't deserve to be praised, it proves the point of our scholars that Allah is using the word hamd in the place where it was a batil situation. A person doesn't deserve any praise. Why is he expecting to be praised? So it's batil. He's not righteous about that. And when Quran mentions any story of any previous prophet, previous nation, any proverb, it's all related to us.
So then I say that if they were,
This is all hujjat. Huh?
if they were not on batil, it means Yahmadu, the praise is possible.
If they were not on batil, there is no point in, we can praise the person who is on haq. Obviously, we don't praise it on his face, but we can praise him, right? Behind his back, wherever, behind his back. So, hamd could have been done. But the point is that these people didn't do anything to be praised, but they were expecting to be praised.
But how this proves that batil can be praised as well?
No, not batil. It's not about batil being praised. It's about that expecting praise for your own self in a situation when you haven't done anything to be praised is a batil mawrid and instance, batil situation. In this situation, nobody deserves to praise you. You haven't done anything. Why should anybody be praised in that situation? This is a batil situation.
Right.
But for a batil scenario, Quran is using the word hamd. So this proves the point of those scholars of other sects who said that hamd can only be used for haq.
No, word hamd is used for a batil situation in Quran. It's a batil situation example. Where people are on batil. This is called batil. Why are you expecting to be praised about things that you have not done?
Expecting the hamd from people when you haven't done anything is a batil thing. It's not haq, you are not righteousness, you're not rightful to expect that. You don't have the right to expect that. But these people were expecting the praise, not just expecting, they were loving to be praised for things they haven't done. So this is a batil situation, but Allah used the word hamd for the batil situation. So the word hamd can be used for a batil scenario. So the word hamd, usage of the word hamd is not specific to haq scenarios. That's the whole point. Which disproves the second difference that these scholars have mentioned between hamd and shukr. But that's not an acceptable difference. Now we will come to the differences that our scholars have mentioned between hamd and shukr, which are the real differences between hamd and shukr. I think we will study the difference in the next class. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.
اللهم صل على محمد
How do you